creating content for students with dyslexia. I'm going to share with you 5 tips that you can do to help your content be readable for students who struggle with reading. Tip number 1, on a document, use a 1.5 line space. Let me show you an example. Here's a document with a paragraph about tigers, and you can see it is set at a single line space. Let's go ahead and adjust it to a 1.5 line space. So this is our icon right here, 3 lines with the up and down arrow for line spacing. I'm going to select it and go to 1.5. And you can see how just that simple adjustment just makes it a little bit easier for students, all students, in fact, to read. Now, you can default your Google Doc so it always creates document at a 1.5 line space. To do that, of course, create a document similar to this, have it at your correct line space, your favorite font, and then go to Format, go to Paragraph Style, down to Options, and then Save as My Default Styles. And if you ever want to go back to factory settings, you can just reset settings. But go ahead, Save as My Default Style. So every time I open a Google Doc, I will now have an Arial font at 12.5 with this 1.5 line setting. Let's go on to tip number 2. Information paragraphs should be no more than 3 to 4 sentences. So information paragraphs are paragraphs where students need to read to learn something. So Google Classroom and Seesaw posts are great examples of information paragraphs. Let me read this do paragraph to you that is 3 sentences. It is the last week of quarter 2. Make sure you have all of your missing assignments turned in by Friday so you get credit for your hard work this quarter. The goal for this week is to finish our essay and take the workshop for a final checkpoint. Now, the second paragraph says the same thing, but it adds more detail. It gives some specific things that really aren't as important. I could give those information live and in person, but this is enough information in this first one that they'll get the gist of what we're doing. And when we talk about it, they'll be able to connect to it. You can imagine a student who struggles with reading is probably not even going to read this because it seems like too much information. Tip number 3, use lists when possible. Now, in Google Classroom and Seesaw, instead of writing informational paragraphs, go ahead and make a list. Make it be like a to-do list of what you want the student to do for your assignment directions, right? Number 1, join the class discussion about the word conflict. Number 2, brainstorm words that mean the same as conflict and add them to the Padlet. And then you can see you would go on to number 3 and number 4. And these would be the steps that a student would follow. And they could go back and use this as a checklist when they're completing the assignment. Also keep this in mind when creating Google Slides, Google Documents, Google Jams. Anytime you are giving directions, if there's an opportunity to make a list, it's very helpful for students who struggle to read. It helps their eyes kind of know where they're going and to refer back to information when they're looking for it. So go ahead and use lists whenever you can. Tip number 4, use meaningful headers. So this really applies to your Google Slides. Here is a Google Slides all about literary elements. And so at the top, I really kept literary elements, the header, really specific to the content of the page. So you can see as we go through, we have setting, plot, theme, and the reading notebook entry. And I think this is specifically helpful for students who are now completing the reading notebook entry. Oh, what is the plot? What am I supposed to put here? Well, I can just quickly glance over here and I can see the plot heading, and I can go here and I can get some information that will help me then complete this information. So making those headers meaningful is really helpful for students who are searching for information and who, of course, struggle with reading a lot of content. Now, the fifth and final tip, which I have been using all along, is use bold and color. Avoid all caps and italics. And I think this next example will just tell you why. So use bold and color, avoid all caps and italics when you want to emphasize specific words. So you can see right away how bold and color pop off the screen, but the all caps and the italics, well, you can tell there's a difference between the text. They really just blend in. So as you could see, as I was going through the tips, I used bold and color to draw your eyes to some of the information on the page. And so keep that in mind when you are creating content for students with dyslexia.